In the Resident Evil universe, there are numerous enemies, most of whom are not inherently evil. Many of them act only on instinct or are controlled by other entities or organizations. So instead of focusing solely on the monsters and scares, in this video we're going to dive into the minds behind the madness, the villains whose choices brought entire cities to ruin. Over the years, Resident Evil has introduced us to some of the most memorable villains in video game history. Although iconic creatures like Nemesis and the Lickers are terrifying and unforgettable, at their core, they are simply the results of someone else's twisted plans. In this ranking, we'll be exploring the 7 most sinister and malevolent villains in the Resident Evil universe. These aren't just villains who cause chaos. They're characters who make conscious decisions that ruin countless lives, driven by ambition, hatred, or pure malice. Here we're going to delve into not only what they did, but why their actions make them some of the most unforgettable and truly malevolent forces in the series. Without further ado, welcome to the ranking of the 7 most evil villains in the franchise, where together we'll dive into the darkest and most twisted minds and see what really drives them. Number 7, Nikolai Zenobi. Nikolai Zenobi is a ruthless mercenary known for his cunning and treacherous nature. Unlike other villains with ideological or scientific ambitions, Nikolai acts purely out of self-interest. As a monitor for the Umbrella Corporation, he viewed his teammates as disposable assets, sacrificing them to ensure his survival and profit. During the Raccoon City outbreak, while Umbrella's Biohazard Countermeasure Service aided survivors, Nikolai had a hidden agenda: to evaluate the performance of Umbrella's bioorganic weapons and destroy any compromising evidence. He betrayed his comrades without hesitation, treating their lives as expendable. Nikolai demonstrated a consistent pattern of betrayal in Raccoon City. If he encountered injured mercenaries like Murphy Seeker, he killed them, claiming that they would turn into zombies. However, he didn't do this to protect others. It was simply a calculated way to remove obstacles. This willingness to eliminate his own team showed him to be a man without loyalty or compassion. One of his most despicable acts was the destruction of Raccoon General Hospital. This hospital had developed a potential vaccine for the T-virus, but Nikolai saw it as a threat to Umbrella's bioweapon profits and planted explosives to destroy the research, showing his complete disregard for the lives that could have been saved. He even saw Jill Valentine as a resource. Knowing that Nemesis would target STAR's members, he allowed the creature to pursue Jill while he carried out his missions undisturbed. This indirect betrayal highlighted his skill in using others as shields to advance his own agenda. In the end, Nikolai betrayed everyone, leaving a trail of destruction in his pursuit of self-preservation and greed. Even in his final encounter with Jill and Carlos Oliveira, Nikolai attempted to negotiate for his safety, revealing his manipulative nature. His disregard for human life and lack of loyalty make him one of the most morally corrupt villains in the Resident Evil series. Number 6, Osman Saddler. Lord Osman Saddler is the main antagonist of Resident Evil 4 in its 2023 remake. Saddler is the mastermind behind the Los Illuminados cult, a group that controls the Spanish village of Valdelobos. This charismatic yet ruthless leader uses the cult and the Las Plagas parasite to subjugate the villagers, creating an army of devoted followers. But his ambitions go far beyond the village. His ultimate plan is world domination, starting with the kidnapping of Ashley Graham, the US president's daughter. Saddler manipulates Los Illuminados, presenting himself as a devoted figure, though he actually uses religion to control his followers. In the remake, he's portrayed as a fanatic who believes Las Plagas will create a paradise under his rule, seeing the parasites as sacred creatures meant to unite humanity. This fanatical devotion makes Saddler not only a megalomaniac, but also dangerously committed to his twisted vision. Saddler's cruelty is evident in his treatment of Ashley. His plan is to infect her with a parasite and return her to her father, so she will unknowingly spread it through the US government, extending his control. This cold use of a young girl as a pawn reflects his lack of compassion. Throughout the game, Saddler maintains a calm demeanor, mocking Leon and showing disdain for him. He doesn't hesitate to eliminate those who defy him or sacrifice loyal followers like Ramon Salazar and Chief Mendez. Even when facing obstacles, Saddler adapts his plans and pursues his goal relentlessly. In his final showdown with Leon, He attempts to control him, but when Leon proves immune, Saddler loses his composure and reveals his monstrous form in a desperate attempt at victory. His blend of manipulation, religious fanaticism, and disregard for life makes him a terrifying villain whose ambition to unite the world under Las Plagas serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers of fanaticism combined with power. Number 5. William Birkin. In the 5th spot among Resident Evil's most evil villains is Dr. William Birkin, whose obsession with scientific perfection left a terrible mark on countless lives. Birkin's story is one of ambition, betrayal, and monstrous transformation, driven by his relentless pursuit of the perfect virus. Although he began as a brilliant virologist, his ambition turned dark, leading him to perform horrific experiments and betray his colleagues and loved ones. Birkin's actions are especially notorious for the suffering he inflicted on Lisa Trevor and her family. Lisa, a young girl kidnapped by Umbrella, became one of Birkin's test subjects, enduring painful experiments. Showing resistance to the progenitor virus, she became the focus of his trials, and he, along with Wesker, implanted her with the Nemesis alpha parasite. Instead of killing her, the parasite fused with her system, transforming her into a near-immortal creature. Lisa's mother died in another experiment, and her father, George Trevor, tried to escape the mansion after finding one of his wife's shoes abandoned there. Drugged and with his memory impaired, he could barely remember the puzzles he had designed, like the tiger eyes and the gold emblem. Desperate, he entered a network of secret tunnels he had created, but soon found himself trapped. Fleeing from guards and weakened by hunger, Trevor hid in an unfinished passage. In a final act of desperation, he stumbled into a pit blocked by a tombstone and felt the letters of his own name engraved on it. Realizing he would die there, he stopped struggling and eventually perished from thirst and hunger in the dark corridor. To Burkin, their lives were mere tools for his experiments, showing his utter disregard for human life in his pursuit of the G-virus. Burkin's relationship with Albert Wesker also fueled his darkest actions. Together they planned to eliminate their mentor, Dr. James Marcus, when he became a threat to their rise within Umbrella. Burkin and Wesker collaborated in Marcus's murder, securing their positions and control over T-virus research, the basis for Burkin's G-virus. This betrayal highlighted his obsession with control and his willingness to sacrifice anyone in his way. Burkin's downfall came with the creation of the G-virus. When Umbrella sent a team to confiscate his research, he injected himself with the virus, transforming into an unstoppable monster that unleashed the outbreak in Raccoon City. Burkin's actions caused incalculable suffering and left a scar on the Resident Evil universe, making him one of the series' most tragic and despicable villains. Number 4. Alexia Ashford. Alexia Ashford is a disturbing figure whose coldness and betrayal of her family make her stand out in the franchise. Unlike other villains who seek power for wealth or influence, Alexia's ambition was deeply personal. She saw herself as a superior being, worthy of controlling life and death, which drove her to commit horrific acts, even against her own family. Alexia and her twin brother, Alfred, were created by their father, Alexander Ashford, who, obsessed with restoring his family's glory, combined his DNA with that of their ancestor, Veronica Ashford. Being a prodigy, Alexia soon discovered the truth about her origins and began to despise her father for treating her as an experiment. This resentment led her to create the T-Veronica virus and to use it on her father, turning him into the monster Nosferatu, an act of patricide that marked her willingness to sacrifice everything for her vision of power. At 12, Alexia injected herself with the virus and went into a 15-year cryogenic sleep to allow it to stabilize in her body. Convinced of her superiority, she sacrificed all human relationships for her desire for absolute power. Upon awakening, she found her brother dead, and while she briefly mourned him, her hatred and ambition deepened. Now endowed with immense powers, she could control flames and mutate into monstrous forms. During her encounters with Albert Wesker and Chris Redfield, Alexia displayed terrifying confidence, mocking them and viewing herself as above all others. Ultimately, her downfall came at the hands of Chris Redfield, who, with the help of an invention from her own father, the linear launcher, destroyed her. However, her legacy of betrayal and experimentation left a permanent scar on the Ashford family and the Resident Evil world. Alexia's calculating cruelty, her experiments on her own father, and her self-perception as a goddess of life and death cement her as one of the franchise's most twisted and malevolent characters. Number 3. Mother Miranda. Mother Miranda is a villain whose story is marked by the profound loss that led her to unimaginable cruelty. She first appeared in Resident Evil Village, where her obsession with resurrecting her daughter Eva drove her to unspeakable acts. Though broken by grief, her desire to bring Eva back created suffering beyond anything a human could conceive. In the early 1900s, Miranda lost Eva to the Spanish flu, a tragedy that devastated her. In despair, she attempted to end her life in a cave, where she discovered the megamycete, an organism capable of preserving consciousness. This discovery gave her hope of reviving Eva, and over decades she studied biology and genetics, using the megamycete's mold to gain immortality and vast powers. Her devotion to bringing her daughter back grew darker with each failed experiment. One of her first acts of horror was infecting villagers with the Kadu parasite, seeking a suitable body to host Eva's essence. Most victims either died in agony or became mindless monsters known as lichens. Only 4 residents, Alcina Dimitrescu, Carl Heisenberg, Donna Beneviento, and Salvatore Moreau survived, becoming Miranda's 4 lords. Although none were compatible with Eva, she kept them close as a twisted family, ruling the village under a false guise of benevolence. Miranda later collaborated with the Connections to create Evelyn, a bioweapon. Although Evelyn failed as a vessel, Miranda continued her efforts until she discovered Rosemary Winters, the daughter of Ethan and Mia. Believing her to be the perfect host, Miranda kidnapped Mia, assumed her identity, and manipulated Ethan to eliminate the 4 lords, feeding the megamycete for her plans. Obsessed with reviving Eva, Miranda ordered massacres in the village, using the villagers as sacrifices. In her final confrontation with Ethan, she revealed her complete disregard for human life. Even as her plans unraveled, Miranda fought to the end, dying without the reunion she longed for. Mother Miranda's tragic story does not absolve her. Her willingness to sacrifice everyone in her pursuit to bring Eva back shows how deeply she lost her humanity in her obsession. Number 2. Oswell E. Spencer. Oswell Spencer is a man whose vision and cruelty shaped the worst atrocities in the Resident Evil universe. As the founder of the Umbrella Corporation and creator of the progenitor virus, Spencer was a ruthless manipulator who, under the guise of progress, conducted twisted experiments, instigated global catastrophes, and left a legacy of death. His ambition began in his youth and intensified after meeting Mother Miranda, who had discovered the megamycete mold and achieved immortality. Inspired, Spencer envisioned a world where he, as a god, would lead a superior race. This vision became the foundation of the Wesker Project, designed to create superhumans through genetic manipulation. The discovery of the progenitor virus in 1968 set his plans in motion. Alongside James Marcus and Edward Ashford, he developed the T-virus, intended to create bioorganic weapons for his purposes. To conceal his true intentions, he founded Umbrella as a pharmaceutical company. When Marcus became a threat, Spencer orchestrated his assassination and monopolized Umbrella, consolidating his control over its research. One of his most heinous acts was his treatment of the Trevor family. Spencer hired architect George Trevor to design a mansion with a hidden laboratory, and then ordered the kidnapping of Trevor's wife and daughter, Jessica and Lisa, using them in progenitor virus experiments through his prodigy scientists William Birkin and Albert Wesker. Lisa was subjected to tests that turned her into a mindless monster, while George was left to die in the mansion he had built. Spencer's pursuit of divinity caused global suffering. His experiments triggered viral outbreaks, indirectly leading to the Raccoon City incident, where thousands perished. Without hesitation, Spencer ordered the city's destruction to cover up Umbrella's involvement and manipulated public opinion to keep the company running. In his final days, Spencer remained hidden, clinging to his dream of reshaping humanity. When Albert Wesker, one of his experiments, confronted him, Spencer revealed his desire to become the god of a new world, but Wesker ended his life. Spencer's actions reverberated throughout Resident Evil. His ambition for godhood cost countless lives, solidifying him as the embodiment of evil in the franchise. Number 1. Albert Wesker. At the top of Resident Evil's most evil villains is Albert Wesker, whose reign of terror spans nearly every installment in the franchise. As the dark puppeteer behind the horrors unleashed by the Umbrella Corporation, his pursuit of power, driven by a god complex, made him the most dangerous villain in the series. Wesker emerged from Umbrella's W Project, a eugenics program created by Oswell Spencer to form superhumans to lead a new world order. As one of the most successful subjects, Albert quickly rose through the ranks as a scientist and double agent in the STARS unit. However, his loyalty was always to himself, and he saw himself as humanity's true savior. His vision wasn't just to control the world, but to remake it, viewing himself as worthy of divinity. One of his most infamous betrayals was manipulating STARS members during the first Resident Evil, leading his team into a mansion infested with bioorganic weapons while secretly gathering combat data. His willingness to sacrifice his team revealed his cruelty and lack of remorse. This betrayal marked his transformation from a mere agent into a force of evil. As he experimented on his own body, Wesker gained superhuman abilities, strength, speed, and regeneration, deepening his god complex. In the 5th installment, his megalomania reaches its peak with his plan to release the Ouroboros virus, a pathogen that would purify the world, leaving only those he deemed worthy. His plan would have wiped out millions, but Wesker saw it as a necessary step toward a new Genesis under his rule. Even his closest allies weren't safe from his betrayal. He used Alexia as a pawn, discarding her once she was no longer useful. His cruelty also extended to his mentor, Oswell Spencer, whom he killed, declaring himself the only one worthy of the title of God. Though his quest for power ended in a fiery confrontation with Chris Redfield, Wesker's influence endures, especially through his son Jake Muller, whose mere existence continues Wesker's legacy of destruction. Wesker's death left an indelible mark on the Resident Evil world, and his philosophy that humanity's flaws justify its destruction remains one of the franchise's darkest ideologies. Albert Wesker's calculated cruelty, immense intelligence, and superhuman powers solidify him as Resident Evil's most iconic villain. His chilling vision of a purified world and relentless pursuit of power make him one of the darkest, most malevolent enemies, whose shadow still haunts the franchise. In the Resident Evil universe, where humanity faces constant threats from bioweapons, mutant monsters, and terrifying conspiracies, it's the villains who elevate the horror to its peak. Each one, from the sadistic genius of Alexia Ashford and the calculating coldness of Mother Miranda to Albert Wesker's boundless ambition, builds an apocalypse that fans both fear and find fascinating. These antagonists go beyond typical villainy, driven by greed, revenge, or a twisted idea of perfection. At the top of this list, Wesker reminds us of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the loss of morality in the pursuit of power. Through their schemes and actions, these villains remind us that in Resident Evil, it's not only the monsters that terrify us, but the minds that create them. They have shaped the franchise into an unforgettable nightmare, leaving a lasting impact on the horror genre and revealing the darkest side of humanity. Hey, don't go just yet. If you enjoyed my video, I'd love to recommend another one for you to watch.